72 days ago, I ruptured my A2 pulley. Here's how it happened. It still makes me feel like throwing up when I hear it and see it. But as you can see, I was just pulling on to my project. I'd done every move the day before. I missed the first move, which is uncommon for me, which probably should have been a red flag that I was tired. And I tell myself, okay, just try harder, pull harder with that left hand, and pop. This was the first time I'd had a serious hand injury during climbing, and I wanted to make this video to hopefully help anyone else going through a similar experience. I want to share everything I learned, what I might do differently pre-injury and then also now, and hopefully just help anyone else who had the same questions I had. So for this video, I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to actually start from the end and work my way backwards, just because if I was someone watching this video, I'd want to know there's hope, because I spent the last 8 weeks totally unsure if I was ever even going to climb again, to be completely honest. So yesterday or 2 days ago, I had my second gym session since the injury, and I was able to climb V3, V4 fairly comfortably. So there's hope. I was able to hang on a 20 mil edge and then a 15 mil edge. I think just prior to the injury, I was able to hang on like a 10 mil edge. I haven't tried that yet. And I've been able to climb fairly pain-free. But what's crazy about the whole injury is that it felt hopeless until it didn't. I think at about 6-7 weeks in, I still had no idea what was going to happen. So this is just to say that there is definitely hope. And whether the timeline is 8 weeks, 10 weeks, 16 weeks, it can come back, and it will come back as long as it's treated properly. But I just want to say that there is hope, and here's a video of me climbing my first V4 at the gym 2 days ago. Okay, so back to the actual injury. I was pulling on my project and it popped, and immediately I felt like something was off. I had had minor pulley injuries in the past where I'd pulled really hard and then afterwards it was kind of tender to the touch. And so I had experienced stuff like that, but this was the first time where anything serious happened. And as soon as it happened, I heard the pop and I felt something up into my palm, and it just felt very strange. It wasn't super painful, but it just felt off, and I knew like even just trying to flex it felt weird, and I did kind of touch it, and I couldn't handle any load on it. I basically couldn't apply any force through the finger without it feeling just wrong. So I immediately walked over, told my fiance like I just hurt myself. She told me to go to the front desk. I got a pack of ice, and I started getting lightheaded. And in the past, if I've been injured, it kind of happens to me. I'm not sure if I'm just sensitive to that sort of thing, but I think my mind spirals that, oh, I've been injured, and it starts to shut down a little bit. So I laid down, kept the ice on the finger, and was just trying to breathe and kind of not pass out. So it was a pretty rough 20 minutes for me. But then beyond that, there really wasn't much pain. I was able to drive us home, just kind of not using the finger. And then I just started researching. And I found tons of great resources online. I'll kind of sum it up. The first thing I did was I went and got a Pulley pal. So it's highly recommended to use a Pulley Splint, as it's called, to essentially re-hold the tendon to the bone. So the issue is that the pulley is a ligament inside that holds the tendon to the bone to allow you to flex your finger. And when the pulley goes, the tendon is allowed to come away from the bone, and that's what you don't want. So by having the Pulley Splint, it helps it heal in place better than if you hadn't. So I exclusively used this for the first 4 weeks and tried not to use the finger at all. So like even like picking up stuff or grabbing a towel, like I would just use my first finger. I would keep this straight and not use it. because I didn't want to load it at all for those first 4 or so weeks. But yeah, the Pulley Splint, I highly recommend. I got it on Amazon. You could also use tape, but the benefit to this is that it's rigid, and it also has these slots on the side to allow the nerves and I guess the veins to not be constricted as well. The next thing I did was, beyond the research, I went to a PT. So I didn't find a PT that specialized in climbing, unfortunately. But I did have one who I'd gone to for previous injuries who I knew had an ultrasound, and that's what I really wanted. That way you can see how much the tendon is leaving the bone. You want to get the bone to tendon distance. I think it's BTD, and if it's a certain millimeters, that determines the grade of the rupture. And you can find all that online, but I'll share the ultrasound footage I have on this video. He wiggled my finger while ultrasounding it and came to the conclusion that I don't think it's ruptured, but you should go see a hand surgeon and get an MRI. And that started the next 6 weeks of issues where I was going back and forth with insurance, trying to get it approved. So he gave me kind of hope that it wasn't fully ruptured, and to this day I still don't know, but based on the pop I assumed it was. So I went, tried to get the MRI, gave it to the place. The first thing they said was, "We don't know what a pulley is." And I said, "You don't have to know what a pulley is, just help me get the MRI. It says left middle finger, don't worry about the pulley thing, that's something in your hand." And they were just totally thrown off, and this whole experience has just been very, I don't know, at times very upsetting. But I tried to do that, and then back and forth with insurance, got denied, got reopened, got re-denied, tried to have the PT contact them, and it just never worked out. At the end of 6 weeks, it was denied for like the 3rd time, and eventually I just called and said, "Hey, how much would it cost for me to do it on my own?" Turns out it's cheaper to do it out of pocket than it is to do it with insurance, which makes no sense. And if I knew that, I would have done it immediately. I would have done it that day. Like the whole insurance thing is so dumb. But yeah, I would have paid for it that day, and then I would have found out and gotten an answer. But instead, it had already been 2 months since the injury, so the ultrasound wouldn't even give me a proper diagnosis. It would just show how much it's healed. So I was gonna self-pay it at that point, and then I finally got in touch with a hand surgeon who was willing to see me. I decided not to do the MRI because the hand surgeon would be able to get it authorized. They told me over the phone. And then also I might not get the right views in the MRI if it hadn't been through the doctor, because he gives notes. So canceled it, went to the hand surgeon, and the hand surgeon basically did everything that I saw on Hooper's Beta. So the resisted flexion test where you hold it at certain points and try to flex. So he did all these tests that made me feel like he knew what he was talking about. He did the palpation to make sure there's no pain and stuff. And at this point, it's 2 months in, so a lot of those early symptoms are gone already. But he basically said, just man up and start using it. It's healing nicely, he said. And then my main concern was that I had additional pain. So I had pain down into my palm and then also at the PIP joint. So not just the pulley. I could tell that the pulley was healing based on how it felt and my previous pulley injuries, but the pain I felt in the joints around it is what concerned me. He told me that it was probably just referred pain, which means you get an injury and then your brain and nerves sense pain around it in other areas, even though those areas aren't injured. So hopefully that's the case, and I've been going off that assumption. And over the last couple weeks, I've been going harder on the hangboard, and then I had a couple sessions climbing. And I think I'm back on track to where I should be climbing at full strength, hopefully within the next couple of months. Okay, so this is my ultrasound footage. And if you've never seen ultrasound footage, especially for this type of injury, it's probably really hard to understand. I had to go down a whole rabbit hole on YouTube to know what I was looking for. And this is only a 2-second clip, but it kind of shows what's going on. So this white part here, this is bone. So this is this bone here, and then down here is the bone closer to my hand. So we're looking at it as if it was from the side. And then this gray stuff, all of this gray stuff is the tendon. So I'm going to scroll back and forth, and you can see the tendon moving. And that is essentially just this. So what we're looking for is the tendon coming away from the bone. In an uninjured finger, this tendon is going to stay real tight to this white bone. In an injured finger with the pulley gone, and you can't really see the pulley, is the tendon will just raise from the bone. And that's how you determine the severity of the injury. Bam, right there. So this black right here, that is a gap. That is the tendon separating from the bone. The tendon is this gray, the bone is this white, and this black part is a gap that's not supposed to be there. I'm doing my best to understand how far that is. So it says the depth here is 2 centimeters, and this blue line seems to represent 2 somethings. So I think each of these dashes is 1/10 of a centimeter. So for me, it's looking like it's about 0.15 centimeters that it's lifting off. But based on this, I kind of made my own assumption that it's probably not a fully rupture, although I'm not totally sure. Okay, so that was the majority of my experience, just from memory. What I want to do now is just talk about what I would recommend. Again, I'm not a doctor. Full disclaimer, dude, this is not medical advice. But if I were to experience that injury again, and what I might recommend to someone else experiencing that injury is a few things. So first off, again, the Pulley Pal. It's awesome. I think it's under $20, and what's nice is that it comes with several different sizes. So there's about 12 in here. I currently use a 17, and it fits the tightness that I want. And I used this for the first 4 weeks, probably even up to 6 weeks, off and on. And it made me feel like I was doing something right. And based on the research I've seen online, it does help to heal everything in the right place. So I would highly recommend using this, or even tape, but just something to keep the tendon to the bone while it's healing. So that's the first thing I would recommend. The other thing that did help me is called penguin fingers. So this is a gel thing. It's kind of like those toys when we were kids where they're bigger and you could kind of move them around. But what it does is you put it in the freezer, it freezes over, and then you can roll it onto your finger, and it's like a cold pack, but it fits where you want it, because otherwise it'd be kind of hard to ice this area. So I've been using this quite a bit, and then also in conjunction with that, I take hot baths, and honestly, when I'm in the hot water, I feel like I have much better range of motion. So the hot water and then the ice penguin fingers. So I'll put a link to all this stuff there. Another thing that the hand surgeon recommended is called therapy putty. So I got this in a pack on Amazon. It comes with several different resistances. This is the extra soft one. So let me see if I can get it out. It's kind of weird. It's kind of like Play-Doh. But yeah, so it's exactly what you think it is. And it kind of just helps to strengthen everything through whatever range of motion you're able to do. It's still kind of painful for me right now. But he said this is really good for just the rehab and kind of getting everything, the blood flowing and the movement and the range of motion. So I think that's something that I wish I had known about 8 weeks ago. So that's the putty. When I've been climbing, I've been doing the H taping method. So there isn't a way to really tape down into here that I've seen, because that's where the A2 is. But the H tape can go over here where the A3 is. And even though it's not really directly over where I got the injury, it helped a lot. So my first session back, I only did V0s on slab with no tape or anything, and it felt okay. I went back for my second session, tried the tape, and that's when I was able to do the hangs and stuff without any pain. So I really recommend the H taping. It's not going to prevent further injury, but it should help give some support because it does still wrap tape around where the A2 is. It's just not directly supporting the pulley. So H taping, you can even wear this while you're climbing. So what you do is you'd put it on and then you put a piece of tape over it just to hold it tight, because it's rigid but it can still flex. So like if I'm doing this, I can see it expand a little bit, and you'd want to keep it at the circumference that it's at now. The issue is that it rubs into the fingers next to it. So you can see like I can't make this with this hand. And so that's why I don't wear it. I might in the future. And then also it rubs on the holds, especially like jugs. Maybe if you're just doing like 2-finger crimps, it's perfect or something. But for me, this is a little overkill, I think, for where I'm at now. I did get a rice bucket, so a bucket full of rice, and I haven't used it a lot. I tried it early on in the injury and it was a little too intense for me. So I'm not really sure. Maybe I can use it now, similar to the therapy putty, and hopefully that'll help. The other thing I want to talk about is that the injury for me was a little bit odd. So when it first happened, I couldn't put any resistance to the finger, but I did have complete range of motion as far as I remember, and almost no swelling. So I wasn't really sure if it was fully ruptured because of that. Over the next couple of weeks though, it began getting stiffer and swollen. So it's still slightly bigger. I'm not sure. I'm not trying to just flip you guys off, but let's see if you can tell at all. It's a little bit thicker than my other middle finger. And it's gone down a little bit actually recently, but it got stiff and swollen, and then I had the pain in the joints around it, and I still can't make like a super tight fist without pain. And so all of that is why I continued like trying to get the MRI and went to the hand surgeon. And I think part of it is that while I was wearing this, it was helping it heal correctly, but I wasn't doing any active range of motion stuff. I had tried doing the tendon glides, but it was painful. I think I should have pushed through that and continued doing that in conjunction with this. So that's something I definitely would do differently, and I think I would have less pain now. So I feel like I'm very close to having no pain, but there is still pain when making a tight fist. And what's crazy is that 2 weeks ago, I couldn't do this. It wouldn't happen. It would be super painful just to get to there, and that was it. So yeah, it's very strange the way that it's healed and like the timeline of everything. But so all that, and then the last thing, I was doing this prior to the injury, and more recently I've been doing it a lot more too. The Emil hangboarding protocol. So it's a free program on the Crimpd app, which is a free app. And it looks like this. So what you'll do is you'll start the workout and it'll automatically time everything. So you'll do 6 hangs and crimps, and you're doing it at about 40% effort. And I go to where I feel like a little bit of pain, but not like a ton of pain. And I think just loading the tendon and then letting it rest and recover is how you train the mind that you don't need to send pain signals anymore. Like it's healed, or it's mostly healed. But your mind is still protecting you by saying, as soon as it feels pressure, it's going to cause pain because it doesn't want you to injure yourself. So you have to train your mind that it's no longer injured and that it's safe to pull with it. At least that's my interpretation of everything. So again, I'm not a doctor, not medical advice, just kind of summarizing my experience and everything I've learned. I'll put all the links to many of the resources I found online, including the stuff that I bought, just in case anyone else wants to do that. And yeah, hopefully that helps. So when the injury happened, it was very difficult emotionally and mentally. I think for me and many other people who climbing is a way to reduce stress and feel a sense of progress, and I'd become a little bit addicted to that. I was always thinking about climbing and how to progress and how to get stronger, and it was to the point where it was becoming negative. And I think that's why the injury eventually did happen, was because I was climbing too much and getting too much volume. Leading up to the injury, I had been progressing really fast. So I started going up a grade or two within those last couple of months and just getting really pretty strong. And I think the issue with that is the muscles can outgrow the tendon strength, and that was something I worried about when I was newer to climbing, but I figured being a couple years in, my tendons were good now, and that was not the case. So I think my left hand and my left forearm, the muscles had overgrown from all of the training I was doing, but the tendons weren't ready and they were degrading, and it probably got injured at some point, and this was the final straw. So it reminded me just to kind of take it easy. I was going too hard too often, and I think moving forward I'll decrease my volume and try to spread out my hobbies. So the other side to that is, as soon as I got injured, I actually felt a sense of relief, which was strange, right? Like, I had always feared this would happen, but I think the relief was partially that, okay, it finally happened. I don't have to worry about it. I know what it's like now, and it was kind of that fear of the unknown. So it happened, and I was able to kind of experience life differently for a few weeks, which was really nice. It was good for my relationship. We went on trips that we otherwise wouldn't have, because I'm usually trying to get outdoors climbing, and I'm always kind of living my life around climbing. And for those few weeks, we went on trips. We went to Yosemite, and I was okay just hiking around. We go on runs. I couldn't lift weights, which really was difficult, because I couldn't hold stuff. I couldn't pick up dumbbells. I couldn't do pull-ups. And so there were parts that were very difficult, but overall it was actually positive, and I think it will prove to be positive in the long run. I'm hoping that a year from now I won't even remember this really, but I think it will teach me that I don't want to rely on my finger strength as often. I want to work on my technique. I want to focus on ways to not overload my hands as much as possible. And even returning to climbing right now, that's what I'm focusing on, is better foot placement, better weight shifting to where I don't have to pull super hard. I had been getting stronger and I was getting comfortable pulling really hard, and eventually I will have to pull hard again, but I think there's always that balance of technique and strength. And so reducing volume is always positive. And what's crazy is that the day that I got injured was one day prior to where I was going to take a whole week off. My parents were visiting, and I was just going to spend time with them, and I was like, okay, last session, let's get it in. And that's when the injury happened. It was also the first time in a long time I'd gone 2 days in a row. So typically I climb 3 days a week, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and that's it. At this point I was like, oh, I'm strong, I'm good now. It's been a couple years, my fingers are good. Let's just do a quick session back to back. So I went Saturday, and then I also went Sunday for 45 minutes just before I was going to go to the airport, and that's when it happened. And even prior to the injury itself, I was super warm. I went to the Hangboard, I tested 20, 15, 10 mil. Everything felt good. I felt like I did everything right. And then the move that I wasn't even worried about, the start of the project, I was worried about all these other crimps up there, and it just happened. So there's not much you can do to prevent it other than reducing volume, reducing intensity, and not putting yourself in that position where it could happen. But yeah, so there are some positives, obviously lots of negatives, and if you're going through it, it is going to be a difficult time emotionally, but knowing there's hope helps, and trying to stay active with other things, focusing on other hobbies, always is beneficial. And I don't know, I think I'm going to live my life a little bit differently now. I still love climbing. I'm still going to climb a lot, but I think there will be a better balance in my life because of this injury.